Phoebe Sullivan asked for a boyfriend in a dark hallway behind an illegal poker room, and the most dangerous man in the city heard every word. She did not know he was there. She did not know his name. She did not know that the tall man standing in the shadows had made senators sweat. Judges lower their voices, and grown criminals suddenly remember prayers their mothers had taught them. All she knew was that her shoe was killing her. Her black dress smelled like spilled champagne and chocolate ganache. Security was still looking for her, and her sister Rosa was crying into the phone like the world had tipped sideways. So Phoebe pressed herself between a stack of folded tablecloths and a wall covered in expensive wallpaper, held the phone close to her mouth, and whispered the sentence that would ruin her peaceful little life. "I just need a boyfriend for tomorrow." The hallway went quiet after she said it. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made the back of her neck prickle. Phoebe glanced over her shoulder, but all she saw was a stretch of dim gold light, the edge of a service elevator, and a closed door marked private, in letters so polished they looked smug. Somewhere beyond that door, rich men were playing cards with chips worth more than her bakery ovens. Somewhere behind her, a guard with a shaved head and no sense of humor was probably still asking why the dessert delivery woman had entered through the members-only hall instead of the kitchen entrance. And in her ear, Rosa was still breathing too fast. "Tomorrow is not a small problem, Phoebes." Nana asked the nurse to curl her hair. She told the whole lounge your fiancé is coming. Mrs. Kaplan is making bets. Phoebe closed her eyes. Of course Mrs. Kaplan was making bets. At Fairview Gardens, gossip moved faster than medication carts. "I know," Phoebe whispered. "I know she expects him. I know I invented him. I know imaginary men are hard to schedule. That is why I am currently hiding in a hallway at a poker club, having a private emotional collapse beside a laundry cart." "You promised her," Rosa said softly. The words were small. They still hit hard. Phoebe leaned her head back against the wall. Her grandmother, Evelyn Sullivan, had once been the loudest woman in any room. She wore red lipstick to doctor appointments, cheated at bingo with the confidence of a politician, and called weak coffee brown sadness. Then her heart began to fail in slow, frightening ways. Her hands shook, her breath shortened. Her memory came and went like a light with bad wiring, but one fear stayed clear inside her. Phoebe would be alone. Phoebe would run the bakery, pay the bills, make jokes, feed everyone, love everyone, and then go home to an empty apartment above the shop, with flour in her hair, and nobody waiting. So Phoebe had lied. At first, it was only a tiny lie, a soft lie, the kind people told sick grandmothers because truth could be too sharp for hospital rooms. She had said there was someone nice, someone kind, someone who took her to dinner and did not mind that she talked too much when she was nervous. Evelyn had brightened so much that Phoebe kept going. The boyfriend became serious, then steady, then private, then, somehow, secretly engaged. Phoebe blamed stress. Rosa blamed stupidity. Evelyn blamed love and asked when she could meet him. Tomorrow was Evelyn's birthday. Tomorrow the lie needed a body. Phoebe swallowed. "I'll fix it." "How?" "I don't know. I'll rent a man." "Please don't say that near strangers. I am surrounded by criminals and people who use cloth napkins. I think we passed normal 10 minutes ago." Rosa made a sound halfway between a sob and a laugh, and that nearly broke Phoebe more than the crying. Phoebe could handle disasters. She was built sturdy, inside and out, with wide hips, soft arms, a sharp tongue, and a heart that had survived by pretending everything was a joke until she found a door. But Rosa crying made her feel like she was 12 again, standing in their grandmother's kitchen after their mother left, watching Evelyn put both girls at the table and say, "Well, babies, grief is rude, but dinner still needs making." "I have to go," Phoebe whispered. "Security is circling like bald eagles." "Phoebes, I'll be there tomorrow, with a solution. That is not the same as with a fiancé. It is when I'm panicking." She ended the call before Rosa could answer, and pressed the phone to her chest. For a second, she let herself breathe. Just 1 second. Then a low male voice came from the dark end of the hallway. Most women ask for money when they hide in private clubs. Phoebe's whole body locked. A man stepped out of the shadows, as if the dark had been holding him politely. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that looked simple until you understood it was probably worth more than her van. His hair was dark, his face calm, and his eyes had the stillness of a man who never had to raise his voice because terrible things happened when he lowered it. He did not smile. That somehow made him worse. Phoebe stared at him, and most men announce themselves before lurking like haunted furniture. One eyebrow lifted. She should not have said that. She knew she should not have said that. But fear always made Phoebe's mouth sprint ahead of her survival instincts. Rosa once said Phoebe would argue with a tornado if it looked at her wrong. Phoebe had called that inaccurate. She would argue only if the tornado blocked the bakery entrance. The man's gaze moved over her face, her messy curls, the bakery logo stitched on her black delivery jacket, the smear of pink frosting on her wrist, and the white cardboard dessert box clutched against her side. His eyes paused there for half a breath. Not long enough for most people to notice. Phoebe noticed. Bakers noticed small things. A cracked sugar shell, a cake leaning 1 degree too far, a customer pretending not to cry over cupcakes for one. "You are in the wrong hallway," he said. "Believe me, sir, I have been informed. This hallway is private. Everything in this building is private. Even the air feels like it signed a contract." His mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. It was the ghost of one, murdered early. Behind them, a door opened. Voices spilled into the hall. Phoebe heard the guard again, the bald one, the one who had told her she had no clearance, then knocked over a tray of lemon tarts and acted like she had personally attacked the Constitution. "There," someone snapped. "She went this way." Phoebe looked at the man in the black suit. He looked back at her, as if men searching hallways had never concerned him in his life. "Listen," she whispered. "I deliver cakes. I do not steal secrets, seduce club members, or whatever people do in places with carpets this thick. If you could point me toward a door that leads to anywhere less terrifying, I will leave and never insult your wallpaper again." The footsteps came closer. The man glanced past her. "Elevator to your left. Press the bottom button. Do not stop." That sounds like something someone says before a person disappears. "If I wanted you to disappear, Miss Sullivan, you would not hear the elevator." Phoebe went cold. She had not told him her name. His eyes flicked to the bakery patch on her jacket. Sullivan Sisters, Late Night Bakery, South Mercer Street. Of course. Her name was on her chest, stitched in cheerful yellow thread beside a cartoon rolling pin. Still, the way he said it felt personal, like he had found a loose string and already knew how hard to pull. The guard rounded the corner. The man in the suit turned his head slightly. The guard stopped so fast his shoes squeaked against the marble. "Mr. DeMarco," the guard said, and all the anger fell out of him. Phoebe's fingers tightened around the dessert box. DeMarco. Even she knew that name, and Phoebe made it a rule not to know Mafia names. Mafia names were like raw eggs. Once they got on your hands, they ended up everywhere. Damien DeMarco was not supposed to be real in the way normal people were real. He was a rumor in expensive shoes. He owned restaurants nobody admitted he owned. He funded charity events with money nobody asked about. He had enemies who left town suddenly and friends who never stood behind him. Men at the bakery whispered his name only when they thought Phoebe was in the kitchen. Rosa said whispers were just unpaid advertising for fear. And now fear was standing in front of Phoebe, wearing a black suit and looking mildly inconvenienced. "She's with me," Damien said. The guard blinked. "Sir?" Damien did not repeat himself. He only looked at him. The guard stepped back. Of course. Phoebe did not move until Damien's gaze returned to her. "Elevator," he said. For once, Phoebe obeyed. She walked fast, then faster, then almost ran. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime that sounded too elegant for the state of her nerves. She slipped inside, jabbed the bottom button, and held the dessert box like a shield while the doors closed. The last thing she saw was Damien DeMarco standing in the hallway, his eyes on the box in her arms, not her face. That should have bothered her. Everything should have bothered her. But by the time she reached the loading dock, her thoughts had already returned to Evelyn, to tomorrow, to the birthday visit, to the imaginary fiancé who had somehow become more complicated than her real taxes. Outside, the night air hit her warm face. Her delivery van waited crookedly near the curb with one back tire close enough to the line to prove she had parked under pressure. Phoebe climbed in, locked the door, and dropped the dessert box on the passenger seat. Her hands shook against the steering wheel. She had delivered the wrong order. She had been chased out of an illegal poker event. She had asked the universe for a boyfriend. The universe had sent Damien DeMarco, which felt less like help and more like a threat with cheekbones. Absolutely not, she said to the empty van. No, bad universe. The van coughed before it started, because even her vehicle enjoyed drama. Phoebe drove back through the city while rain slicked the streets and neon signs blurred in the windshield. Sullivan sisters glowed on South Mercer like a tired little promise. The bakery was wedged between a closed tailor shop and a laundromat that never fixed its sign, so half the letters blinked and made it look like a warning. Rosa was waiting inside, flour on her cheek, her dark hair tied up in a scarf, worry sitting heavy around her eyes. Phoebe came through the back door and held up one finger. Before you start, I survived. Barely. There was marble. There were men with watches that cost houses. There was a guard who hated pastry. Rosa stared at the box. Where are the black cherry tortes? Phoebe looked down. The box was not theirs. It was white, square, and tied with a silver ribbon instead of the pink string they used at the bakery. No logo, no label, no smudge of jam where Rosa always overfilled one corner tart because she believed generosity was a legal defense. Phoebe slowly placed it on the steel prep table. Rosa's eyes widened. Please tell me that is not from the poker place. That is not from the poker place. Phoebe, it may have emotionally followed me from the poker place. Rosa pressed both hands to her face. What is inside? Hopefully cake. It was not cake. Inside the box, nestled beneath a layer of tissue paper, was a small black flash drive taped to the bottom of a fake pastry tray. There were also 4 perfect chocolate domes, glossy as mirrors, but nobody cared about those anymore. Phoebe stared at the flash drive. Rosa stared at Phoebe. The bakery ovens hummed behind them, warm and ordinary, as if the room had not just become part of a crime. Nope, Phoebe said. Rosa whispered, Is that drugs? Do drugs come on flash drives? I don't know. I went to community college, not crime school. Phoebe reached toward the box, then pulled her hand back. We are going to put the lid on. We are going to place it somewhere safe. Tomorrow, after Nana's birthday, we are going to figure out who owns it. Tomorrow? Nana first. Felony pastry second. Rosa looked at her as if she had lost her mind, which was fair because Phoebe had lost it somewhere between the private hallway and the loading dock. But Evelyn's birthday had become a bright, fragile thing in Phoebe's mind. Her grandmother had been weaker all week. The nurse had said good days mattered. Good days were medicine in a form nobody could prescribe. Phoebe could not walk into that nursing home, stare into Evelyn's hopeful face, and tell her the perfect fiancé was fake, because Phoebe was too tired, too broke, too scared, and too much herself to be loved in a way that made an old woman stop worrying. So the next morning, Phoebe put on her nicest green dress, the one with tiny white flowers at the hem. She pinned her curls back twice, and gave up when one section escaped on purpose. She covered the dark circles under her eyes with concealer that had given up months ago. Then she stood behind the bakery counter while Rosa adjusted her collar and looked like she was trying not to cry again. "You can still tell her the truth," Rosa said. Phoebe looked toward the display case. Lemon bars, strawberry hand pies, cinnamon rolls fat with brown sugar, all things she knew how to fix. Sugar too sharp, add cream. Dough too stiff, let it rest. Chocolate burned, start over. People were not like that. Hearts were not like that. Grandmothers were absolutely not like that. "I will," Phoebe said. "Just not today. And the fiancé? I will say he got called away. You used that last time. Men are busy, fictional men especially." Rosa touched her arm. Phoebe forced a smile. "I am going to disappoint her gently. That is my plan. A soft disappointment, like overbaked pudding. That sounds terrible. It is terrible, but it is pudding." She took Evelyn's birthday cake from the fridge. Vanilla sponge, whipped cream, peach filling, and buttercream peonies in pale pink, because Evelyn believed roses were show-offs. Phoebe carried it carefully to the van. She tried not to think about the flash drive hidden in the bakery office inside a jar labeled emergency sprinkles. No criminal would look there. Probably. Unless criminals had evolved. Fairview Gardens sat on a hill at the edge of the city. All beige stone and cheerful flower beds that looked expensive enough to make families feel guilty. Phoebe parked near the entrance and sat for a moment with the cake on the passenger seat. Through the glass doors, she could see the lobby. A nurse taped balloons to the front desk. Mrs. Kaplan sat in her wheelchair near the window, clearly positioned for maximum surveillance. Evelyn was already there, wrapped in her lavender cardigan, her silver hair curled, her lipstick bright red. Phoebe's throat tightened. Evelyn looked smaller than she had last month. That was the part Phoebe hated most. Illness stole in quiet ways first. A little weight, a little color, a little strength from the hand that used to slap dough into obedience. The woman who had raised her and Rosa on soup, stubbornness, and unpaid electric bills now looked breakable under the soft lobby lights. Phoebe climbed out of the van and lifted the cake. She made it 3 steps before a black car pulled smoothly into the space beside her. Not a normal black car. A silent black car. A car that looked like it had opinions about poor people. The back door opened. Damien DeMarco stepped out. Phoebe froze so completely, the cake nearly tipped. He wore another dark suit, this one with a charcoal coat over it. His hair was damp from the morning mist. His expression was calm. Too calm. Behind the wheel sat a man with a hard face and both hands still on the steering wheel, watching everything. Phoebe stared at Damien. "No. Good morning, Miss Sullivan." "No, it is not. It was almost a morning. Then you arrived." His gaze dropped to the cake box. "We need to talk. Unless you are here to apologize on behalf of rich wallpaper, we do not. You took something that belongs to me." Phoebe's heart gave one hard thump. "I take lots of things. Mostly criticism and unpaid catering requests. The box." "What box?" "The one you are pretending not to understand." Phoebe looked toward the nursing home doors. Evelyn had spotted her. Worse, Evelyn had spotted Damien. The old woman's face changed. Hope lit it from the inside, quick and dangerous. Oh no. Phoebe felt the world tilt. Inside the lobby, Evelyn lifted one trembling hand and pointed. Mrs. Kaplan leaned forward so fast her wheelchair rolled an inch. Rosa had been right. They were waiting. They were all waiting. The nurses, the residents, the entire gossip-powered government of Fairview Gardens. Phoebe could see her grandmother's mouth forming words through the glass. "Is that him?" Phoebe's lungs forgot what they were for. Damien followed her gaze. His eyes moved from Evelyn to the balloons, to the birthday banner, to the cake in Phoebe's hands, to Phoebe's face. He understood far too quickly. "Miss Sullivan," he said quietly. "No." Her voice came out thin. "Do not say anything. You lied to your grandmother." That is a rude summary of a delicate emotional situation. And she thinks I am the lie. No, she thinks you are my fiancé, which is different and much worse. For the first time, Damien looked almost startled. Just a flicker, gone instantly. Your fiancé, temporarily, accidentally, visually. The nursing home doors opened. A nurse stepped out, smiling too brightly. Phoebe, honey, your grandmother is so excited. Phoebe opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She could still fix it. She could say Damien was nobody. She could say he was a stranger. She could break Evelyn's face in public and let Mrs. Kaplan dine on the wreckage for weeks. Her hands tightened around the cake box. Her throat burned. Then Damien moved. Not roughly. Not dramatically. He simply stepped closer, took the cake from Phoebe before her shaking hands could drop it, and offered his other hand to her, as if they had done this 100 times. His palm was warm. His fingers closed gently around hers. Phoebe looked up at him, horrified. Damien DeMarco looked toward the lobby, softened his expression into something so convincing it made her stomach flip, and said, "Sorry I'm late, sweetheart." Phoebe nearly forgot her own name. The nurse sighed, as if someone had handed her a romance novel and a cookie. Mrs. Kaplan slapped the arm of her wheelchair. Evelyn covered her mouth with both hands and her eyes filled with tears. Phoebe leaned closer to Damien without meaning to. Through her smile, she whispered, "I am going to put frosting in your car vents." He did not look at her. "Smile. I am smiling. You look like you want to bite me. That is my happy face." His thumb moved once over her knuckles, a warning maybe, or reassurance. She did not know which possibility bothered her more. They walked into Fairview Gardens together, hand in hand, carrying a birthday cake and a lie big enough to have its own weather. Evelyn waited in the center of the lobby, fragile and glowing. When Damien stopped in front of her, he did not perform the shallow charm Phoebe expected. He did not speak down to her. He did not give her the polished smile men gave old women when they wanted credit for kindness. He bent slightly, took Evelyn's hand with care, and said, "Mrs. Sullivan, I should have come sooner." Evelyn stared at him for one long second. Then she smiled. "Oh," she said softly, "you are trouble." Phoebe choked. Damien's eyes flicked to her, then back to Evelyn. "I have been told." "My girl likes trouble," Evelyn said. "She pretends she doesn't. That is how I know she is mine." "Nana." "What?" "You do. You brought home a raccoon once because it looked lonely. It had emotional eyes. It ate my curtains. It was processing trauma." Damien looked down at Phoebe with something unreadable in his face. Not mockery, not amusement exactly. Interest. As if she had turned into a puzzle he had not expected to want to solve. The birthday visit should have been a disaster. Somehow, it became worse than that. It became beautiful. Damien sat beside Evelyn in the sunny lounge while Phoebe cut cake with hands that still felt unreal. He listened when Evelyn told him about the bakery's first oven, the one that burned everything on the left side. He remembered Rosa's name after hearing it once. He laughed quietly when Evelyn accused him of having funeral taste in clothing. He accepted a paper plate of peach cake and ate it without asking what was in it, which Phoebe found suspiciously brave. Evelyn watched every bite like a queen judging tribute, and Phoebe watched him. She did not want to. Watching Damien DeMarco felt like touching a locked door to see if it was warm, but she watched anyway. She watched the way his large hand held the thin paper plate carefully so it would not bend. She watched the way he waited for Evelyn to finish sentences when her breath gave out halfway through. She watched the way he did not interrupt. Powerful men loved interrupting. Phoebe had met enough of them at catered events, men who spoke over her while eating the food she had made. Damien did not fill silence just because he could. That made him more dangerous. Cruel men were easy to hate. Gentle moments from dangerous men were confusing. Confusing was how people got trapped. When Evelyn grew tired, her hand found Phoebe's. "You picked a handsome one." Phoebe forced a laugh. By accident. Damien looked at her. Evelyn's eyes sharpened, old mischief briefly cutting through the sickness. Good. The heart is smarter when the brain is busy making other plans. Nana, please stop giving wisdom near witnesses. I am old. I can say what I like. Evelyn turned to Damien. Does she feed you? I have not yet earned that privilege. Phoebe stared at him. Excuse me? Evelyn smiled wider. Polite answer. Dangerous but polite. The nurse eventually came to take Evelyn back to her room. Evelyn held Damien's hand before he could stand. Her voice softened. Take care with her. Something in Damien's face changed, very slightly, enough that Phoebe felt it. I will, he said. Not I promise. Not you have my word. Just I will. Quiet. Certain. Phoebe hated that it comforted her. The moment Evelyn was gone, Phoebe pulled Damien down the hall by the sleeve, through the lobby, past Mrs. Kaplan's open-mouthed delight, and out into the misty courtyard beside the visitor parking lot. What was that? She demanded. He adjusted his sleeve where she had grabbed it. You were panicking. So you joined the panic? As my fiancé? You needed help. I needed a believable accountant named Greg. Not a Mafia thundercloud with cheekbones. His eyes narrowed slightly. You talk a lot when you are frightened. I talk a lot always. Fear just adds seasoning. The box, Phoebe. Her name in his voice made the air shift. Not Miss Sullivan now. Phoebe. She wished she had not noticed. Her sarcasm faded. It's safe. Where? Somewhere nobody dangerous would look. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting until you explain why an illegal poker cake contained a flash drive. Damien was still for a moment. You opened it. I was hoping for Moose. That drive is connected to a ledger that was stolen from me. Phoebe's stomach turned. A crime ledger? A business record. Oh, good. A crime ledger with manners. His mouth almost moved again. Almost. Before he could answer, the driver stepped out of the black car. He did not come close, only lifted his phone and said, Boss. Damien turned. The man's voice lowered, but Phoebe caught enough. A name. Lorenzo. A nursing home account. Men watching the bakery. Damien's expression went cold in a way that made the damp morning feel suddenly colder. Phoebe crossed her arms over her soft stomach, as if that could protect anything. Why did he say nursing home? Damien looked back at her. For the first time since she had met him, he seemed to choose his words with care. Because the people who want that drive may already know your grandmother's name. The parking lot noise faded. The traffic beyond the trees, the nurses talking near the entrance, the distant laugh from the lobby, all of it seemed to fall away. Phoebe thought of Evelyn's thin hand in Damien's. Rosa crying into the phone. The flash drive hidden in emergency sprinkles. The black car. The private club. The box that was not theirs. The man in front of her, who had become her fake fiancé, for reasons she still did not trust. Her fear rose fast. Then, stubbornness rose faster. No, she said. Damien's gaze sharpened. No? No to whatever you are about to do. No to moving us somewhere secret. No to telling me to stay quiet. No to treating me like a cupcake you can put under glass. His eyes held hers. You have no idea what this is. You're right. I don't, but I know my family is in it now, and that means I am in it too. That is not how protection works. Phoebe stepped closer. Her heart was hammering, but her voice stayed steady. Maybe not in your world. In mine, love means you don't leave people outside the kitchen when the house is on fire. For a second, Damien said nothing. Then his gaze moved over her face, as if he were seeing something he had not expected to find in a woman with flour on her sleeve and fear in her eyes. Fine, he said at last. Phoebe blinked. Fine? You want to be part of the plan? Then you will be part of the plan. She did not trust how easily he said it. That feels like a trap. It is an agreement. With Mafia garnish. With rules. There it is. Damien stepped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to keep looking at him. He did not touch her. Somehow, the space he left between them felt louder than contact. "You will not run from my men," he said. "You will not hide information from me. You will not open files you do not understand. And if I say danger is close, you move first and argue later." Phoebe lifted her chin. "My rules. You do not boss my sister. You do not scare my grandmother. You do not enter my bakery like you own it. You do not call me sweetheart unless my grandmother can hear you. And you do not make decisions about my life without asking me first." His eyes stayed on hers. Most men laughed when Phoebe gave rules. Some got offended. A few gave that tight little smile that meant they were already planning to ignore her. Damien DeMarco did none of those things. He only said, "Agreed." Phoebe should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt the first strange pull of something much more dangerous than fear. Because Damien DeMarco had heard her ask for a boyfriend. He had stepped into the lie. And now, somehow, the lie had become the safest part of the truth. The first thing Phoebe learned about being fake engaged to a mafia boss was that everyone in his world acted like privacy was something only poor people needed. By the time she reached Sullivan Sisters again, there were already 2 black cars parked across the street, one at the corner near the laundromat with the broken sign, and another beside the fire hydrant where the city loved giving tickets to people who could not afford them. The men inside did not look at her directly. That somehow made it worse. Men who stared could be yelled at, men who pretended not to stare while clearly knowing the exact rhythm of her breathing were much harder to insult with confidence. Phoebe parked behind the bakery, carried Evelyn's empty cake box inside, and found Rosa standing in the kitchen with a rolling pin gripped in both hands. Her sister's eyes were wide, dark, and furious. Flour streaked her cheek like war paint. "There are men outside," Rosa said. "I noticed. They are wearing earpieces. Maybe they're very committed podcast listeners." "Phoebe." Phoebe set the cake box on the counter. "Damien sent them." Rosa stared at her. "Damien?" "Mr. DeMarco felt too formal after he pretended to be my fiancé in front of Nana and ate peach cake like he had personally been invited by God." The rolling pin lowered an inch. "He did what?" Phoebe took a breath, then another. Then she told Rosa everything. Not perfectly, not calmly. Phoebe had never been good at telling calm stories when the story involved a flash drive, a private club, a nursing home, and a man who looked like a funeral had learned manners. Rosa listened without interrupting, which meant the situation was worse than Phoebe thought. Her sister only went silent when her fear became too large for language. By the time Phoebe reached the part about Evelyn possibly being connected through the nursing home accounts, Rosa had sat down on the flour bin with one hand pressed against her mouth. "Is Nana in danger?" Rosa asked. Phoebe wanted to say no. She wanted to say impossible. She wanted to make a joke about Evelyn scaring criminals with bingo cards and lipstick. Instead, she looked toward the front windows, where the black car across the street sat too still in the afternoon light. "I don't know," she said. Rosa closed her eyes. "Where is the flash drive?" Phoebe looked toward the office. Rosa followed her gaze. "You did not. It was the safest place. You put Mafia evidence in the emergency sprinkle jar. No one touches that jar unless the world is ending. The world may actually be ending." Then the labeling was accurate. Rosa stood, went into the office, and returned with the clear plastic jar. The label had been written in Phoebe's handwriting 2 years earlier, after a wedding cake collapsed 40 minutes before delivery. "Emergency sprinkles. Do not use unless crying." Rosa unscrewed the lid and stared at the little black drive hidden under rainbow sugar. "It looks so small," she whispered. "That is how trouble gets you. It arrives travel-sized." The bell over the front door rang. Both sisters froze. The bakery was closed between lunch and the late-night shift. The sign on the door clearly said back at 6, though half their customers believed signs were suggestions written for other people. Rosa grabbed the rolling pin again. Phoebe took the sprinkle jar and shoved it behind her back. She stepped through the swinging door into the front of the bakery. Damien DeMarco stood near the display case as if he had been carved from expensive shadow and placed among cinnamon rolls by mistake. Behind him, one of his men waited by the door, broad and silent, holding a phone. Damien's eyes moved over the bakery slowly, the pink walls, the crooked chalkboard menu, the row of mismatched mugs hanging over the coffee station, the photograph of Evelyn on opening day, holding a tray of sugar cookies and laughing with her whole mouth open. Then his gaze moved to Phoebe. "You should have waited for my car," he said. Phoebe's fingers tightened around the jar behind her back. "Good afternoon to you too, darling. Would you like to criticize my driving while you're here, or is this more of a general intimidation visit?" Rosa stepped out behind her. "If you brought men to scare us, you can leave." Damien looked at Rosa, and to his credit, he did not smile like her anger was cute. "I brought men because Lorenzo Varelli's people were outside your bakery before mine arrived." Rosa went still. Phoebe felt the sprinkle jar grow heavy in her hand. Damien turned back to her. "The drive." Phoebe lifted her chin. "Information first. This is not a negotiation." "That is adorable. You keep saying things like you believe them." His eyes sharpened, but he did not raise his voice. "Lorenzo has been moving money through shell companies tied to Fairview Gardens and 3 other care homes. My ledger had partial transaction records. The drive you took may contain the bridge between his accounts and the nursing home board." Rosa whispered, "Why would a crime boss use a nursing home?" "Because everyone watches banks," Damien said. "No one watches laundry vendors, medication suppliers, landscaping contracts, food service invoices, and private care donations, unless someone teaches them to." Phoebe felt something inside her shift. She knew invoices. She knew fake pricing. She knew the little ways people stole from businesses that did not have time to check every line. At the bakery, money did not vanish in dramatic amounts. It disappeared in small overcharges, extra fees, wrong weights, missing boxes, quiet little bites taken by people who expected tired women not to notice. Evelyn had taught her that numbers had moods. Honest ones sat clean on paper. Lying ones always leaned a little. "And Evelyn?" Phoebe asked. Damien's face stayed calm, but his silence answered too much before he spoke. "Her care home may have been used without her knowledge, or someone inside may be involved. I do not know yet. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. See, most people aim for comforting when they talk to scared families. Most people lie." Phoebe hated that she did not have an easy answer to that. She brought the jar forward and set it on the counter between them. Damien looked at the label. For one brief second, something like confusion crossed his face. "Emergency sprinkles," he said. "Yes, you hid stolen evidence in sugar. Technically, under sugar." His man near the door coughed once into his fist. Damien did not look away from Phoebe. "You opened the files?" "No, I have excellent survival instincts when not speaking." "Good. Do not sound proud. I hate that." Rosa picked up the jar before Damien could reach for it. "If this drive proves someone is using our grandmother's nursing home, we get to see what is on it." "No," Damien said. Phoebe and Rosa answered at the same time. "Yes." The bakery went quiet. Damien looked from one sister to the other. "You do not understand what viewing those files could make you responsible for." Phoebe leaned both hands on the counter. "My grandmother is already responsible for surviving inside that place. Rosa and I are responsible for paying the bills. So if someone used her home, her care, or her illness as a hiding place for dirty money, then congratulations, Mr. DeMarco. We are involved." His eyes held hers for a long moment. "Damien." "What? If you are going to accuse me of being morally irritating, use my name." Phoebe blinked. "That is not as charming as you think it is." It was not meant to be charming. Bad news. It had a little charm on it. Rosa made a strangled sound behind her, as if she did not know whether to laugh or throw the rolling pin. Damien's gaze dropped to Phoebe's mouth. Not for long. just long enough for her to notice, which was rude of him. Then he looked away first, which was worse. "I have a man who can open the drive safely," he said. "Not here. Not on your computers. Our computers are perfectly good. Your office computer still runs a program from 2009. Phoebe narrowed her eyes. "Have you been investigating my bakery?" "Yes." "Then our engagement is already in trouble. It was invented 4 hours ago. And yet you are failing at it." Rosa finally stepped between them and set the jar down. "Enough. If opening that drive tells us whether Nana is in danger, we open it. Here or somewhere else, I do not care. But we are not handing over the only proof and trusting a man we met because Phoebe stole crime dessert." "I did not steal crime dessert. I accidentally accepted custody." Damien's man made the coughing sound again. This time, it was definitely laughter wearing a cheap disguise. Damien turned slightly. "Nico." The man's face went blank. "Sorry, boss." Phoebe looked at him. "No, keep doing that. It gives the room hope." Nico looked like he would rather eat glass than answer. For the first time since he had entered the bakery, Damien almost smiled. It was small, quick, and deeply inconvenient. Phoebe saw it anyway, and something warm moved low in her chest before she could stop it. That evening, Sullivan sisters did not open for late-night service. A handwritten sign on the front door said family emergency, which was true if your definition of family included a grandmother, 2 exhausted bakers, 1 mafia boss, 3 armed men, and a flash drive full of possible financial crimes. Damien brought a small silver laptop that had never touched the internet, which made Rosa whisper that rich crime people were annoyingly prepared. Nico connected the drive while Phoebe stood behind him with her arms crossed and a butter knife in one hand. Damien noticed. "Is that for me?" "It is for emotional support. It is a butter knife. I'm a baker. We use what we know." The files took several minutes to open. Phoebe hated those minutes. The bakery smelled like coffee and cooling sugar, but the air felt wrong. It felt like the building itself was listening. Rosa paced near the ovens. Damien stood beside the prep table, still as stone. Nico worked silently. Outside, the black cars remained parked under the streetlights. At last, the screen filled with folders. Names, dates, transfers. Companies Phoebe did not recognize. Others she did. Fairview Gardens Nutritional Services. Blake Care Holdings. Varelli Community Wellness Fund. Tiny, respectable names. Names that would look harmless on a bill. Phoebe leaned closer. "Open that one." Nico glanced at Damien. Damien nodded. The folder opened into spreadsheets, scanned contracts, payment records, and something that made Phoebe's stomach tighten. Monthly invoices for fruit, dairy, bread, medical supplements, and special meal services. She knew food costs. She knew what peaches cost by the crate in August, and what they cost in February when suppliers got smug. She knew no nursing home should be paying that much for basic flour, unless the flour had arrived wearing diamonds. "That's wrong," she said. Nico paused. "What is?" Phoebe pointed. "This supplier is billing them for 60 pounds of almond flour every week." Damien looked at her. "Is that unusual? For a nursing home?" "Yes. Half the residents can't even eat nuts. Fairview uses soft meal plans. Evelyn complains constantly. She says every dessert tastes like it was frightened before baking." Rosa came closer. "That dairy number is wrong too." Phoebe nodded. "And the bread. They're charging for artisan sourdough. Fairview serves square rolls that bounce." Damien's gaze sharpened. "How much of this can you identify?" Phoebe looked at the spreadsheet again. The numbers stopped looking like numbers. They became ingredients, deliveries, storage needs, kitchen habits, waste, lies pretending to be groceries. Enough to know someone is washing money through food invoices. Nico looked impressed despite himself. "You got that in 30 seconds? Phoebe shrugged. "I yell at wholesalers for sport." Damien looked at her differently then, not like she was a problem, Not like she was an accident, like she had become a weapon he had not known he was carrying. Phoebe did not know whether to feel proud or nervous. They worked until after midnight. Damien's world slowly unfolded on the bakery table in lines of numbers and hidden names. Lorenzo Varelli had used nursing homes, flower vendors, nutrition suppliers, event caterers and charitable donations to move money through clean-looking places. Cassandra Blake's family name appeared again and again through holding companies attached to elder care businesses. Not directly, never directly. Rich betrayal had better stationery than poor betrayal. But it was there if you knew how to look. Rosa made coffee so strong it could have testified in court. Nico drank 3 cups and became visibly afraid of her. Another one of Damien's men, a quiet giant named Marco, accepted a cinnamon roll and then confessed he had skipped dinner. Rosa wrapped 6 more for him, with such aggressive kindness that he looked trapped. Phoebe watched all of it with strange wonder. Damien's men had entered the bakery like shadows. Within an hour, Rosa had them eating at the staff table and taking instructions about napkins. Criminals, Phoebe decided, were still men, and men were often one warm pastry away from obedience. Damien noticed too. "You feed everyone," he said quietly, while Rosa argued with Nico over whether he needed more coffee. Phoebe wiped powdered sugar from the counter. "It's a bakery. That's the theme." "No, you feed people like it is a language." That made her hands still. She did not look at him. "My grandmother said hungry people get mean because their souls are knocking too loudly. Is that why you made my men sit down?" "No, I made your men sit down because they were looming near the sourdough starter, and she is sensitive. Her name is Bernadette." Damien looked at the glass jar of bubbling dough near the window. "You named fermented flour. Careful, she holds grudges." His eyes softened with that almost smile again. Phoebe turned away before it could do damage. Around 1 in the morning, Rosa went upstairs to call Evelyn's nurse and check on her. Nico stepped outside to take a call. The bakery settled into a rare quiet. Rain tapped softly against the front windows. The lights were low. Damien stood near the display case, staring at the photograph of Evelyn from opening day. "She raised you," he said. Phoebe joined him, but kept a sensible distance. Sensible distance was important around men who looked too good in dark coats. "She raised both of us. Our mom left when we were kids. Evelyn took us in like we were a package delivered to the wrong door but too cute to return. She looks strong. She is. She once chased a landlord down the street with a broom because he tried to raise rent during a heat wave." Damien's gaze stayed on the photograph. "My grandmother raised me too." Phoebe looked at him then. He did not offer more right away. Men like Damien probably kept personal memories behind locked doors with guards outside. But tonight, the bakery was warm, and the rain was gentle, and maybe the smell of cinnamon made even dangerous men forget where they had hidden the softer parts of themselves. "Her name was Lucia," he said. "She came from Sicily with 2 dresses, no English, and a husband who gambled away rent before he died badly enough to become a warning. She cleaned houses, raised me in a 1-bedroom apartment above a butcher shop. She had hands like paper and a voice like a church bell." Phoebe said nothing. For once she knew better. Damien's jaw tightened. "When I became old enough to choose power, I chose it completely. I told myself I was doing it for her. Better doctors, better apartment, better everything. Then one Sunday she asked me to visit. I had business. I told her next week." The rain touched the glass again and again. "There was no next week," he said. Phoebe felt the words land in the warm bakery like snow. Damien looked away from the photograph. "When I heard you in that hallway, you sounded like someone trying to borrow time from a world that does not lend gently." Phoebe's throat tightened. For all her jokes, for all her loudness, for all the ways she filled silence before it could swallow her, he had heard the one true thing underneath. She was trying to borrow time. Another birthday, another good day, another afternoon where Evelyn looked at her and believed the future might be kind. I lied, because I thought it would make her less afraid, Phoebe said. But maybe I made it worse. You gave her comfort. I gave her a man who did not exist. Now he does. Phoebe turned to him slowly. Do not say things like that. Why? Because you say them like they are simple. They can be. No, Damien, they cannot. You are not Greg from accounting. You are not going to come to Sunday dinner and complain about parking. You are a man whose enemies may know my grandmother's room number. His face hardened at that, but not at her, at the truth. Phoebe hugged herself. And I'm not some elegant woman from your world who knows which fork means betrayal. I'm a fat baker with bad knees, loud opinions, and a van that starts only after I threaten it. Your people look at me like I wandered into the wrong movie. Damien turned fully toward her. My people are learning quickly. She laughed once, but it hurt. Cassandra Blake won't. The name had appeared enough in the files. Phoebe had asked. Rosa had answered first, because Rosa read society pages the way other people read horror novels. Cassandra Blake was beautiful, rich, elegant, and connected to one of the families Damien needed to keep peace with. She was also, apparently, his arranged fiancé, though Damien had said the word arranged as if it tasted like cold metal. At the mention of Cassandra, his expression closed. I have not agreed to marry her, he said. Does she know that? She knows what is useful for her to know. Phoebe tilted her head. That may work with crime princesses, but it does not work with bakers. I am beginning to understand that. Good. Here is another lesson. Guilt is not love. His eyes changed. Phoebe regretted saying it, then did not. What you feel about your grandmother, that ache, that missed Sunday, that thing you keep locked in your chest like punishing yourself, will bring her back. That is guilt. It may have brought you into that hallway. It may have made you help me today. But it is not the same as caring about me or my family. Do not confuse them. Damien was silent for a long time. Most men would have defended themselves. Most powerful men would have made the air dangerous. Damien only stood there, letting the words hit him. Then he said, "And if it has become more than guilt?" Phoebe's heart gave a foolish, painful kick. She looked away first. Then you should be very careful with it. The next few days changed the bakery in ways Phoebe could not explain to anyone normal. Damien's men became part of the street. Nico appeared every morning with a coffee order he pretended was for security reasons. Marco fixed the back door latch without asking, then flinched when Rosa told him nobody fixed things in her kitchen without eating first. A young guard named Sal learned how to pipe whipped cream after Phoebe caught him watching and handed him a pastry bag. He was terrible at it. She told him so. He looked delighted. And Damien kept showing up. Not constantly. That would have been easier to resent. He appeared at strange, precise times, always when the bakery was between rushes, always with an excuse that sounded real, until Phoebe looked directly at it. He needed to review invoices. He needed to speak with Rosa. He needed to confirm Evelyn's visitor schedule. He needed coffee, even though his driver could have bought coffee anywhere in the city. Phoebe started calling him Mr. Funeral Suit on the third day. He looked down at his black coat. This is charcoal. You say that like charcoal isn't funeral adjacent. Do you insult every man protecting you? Only the overdressed ones. I will wear blue tomorrow. Don't threaten me with growth. He wore blue the next day. Phoebe hated him for it. Not real hate. Real hate was simple. This was worse. This was noticing. She noticed that blue made his eyes look less cold. She noticed he always stepped aside when she carried hot trays, never crowding her path. She noticed he asked Rosa before taking files from the office. She noticed he listened when Phoebe said no, even when every muscle in him seemed built for command. Once, a customer made a comment about Phoebe's body while ordering cupcakes. Nothing new. Nothing she had not heard in 10,000 boring forms. The man said she must taste test everything herself and laughed like he had invented cruelty. Phoebe opened her mouth with a smile already sharpened. Damien, standing near the coffee station, went very still. Phoebe saw it. The customer did not. Lucky man. She held up one hand toward Damien without looking at him. Do not. The bakery went silent. Damien's voice was low. He insulted you. He embarrassed himself. Different thing. The customer turned pale as he finally recognized Damien. Phoebe slid the cupcake box across the counter. That will be $18, plus a $5 fee for making everyone uncomfortable. The man paid $25 and left without his change. Damien watched him go. You should have let me handle it. Phoebe wiped the counter. No, I handled it. He deserved fear. He got charged extra. We all use our tools. Damien looked at her for a long moment. Does it happen often? Phoebe shrugged, hating the sudden softness in his tone. People get weird around women who don't apologize for taking up space. You should never apologize for that. Her hands paused. The words were simple, not poetic, not grand. That was why they reached her before she could dodge them. Careful, she said quietly. With what? Sounding like you mean things. He did not answer, but after that, whenever he stood near her in the bakery, he gave her room. Not distance, room. There was a difference, and Phoebe wished she did not understand it so clearly. On Friday afternoon, Cassandra Blake walked into Sullivan Sisters and made the little bell above the door sound judgmental. Phoebe knew it was her before anyone said a name. Some women entered a room. Cassandra arrived like a verdict. She was tall and slim, dressed in cream silk beneath a pale coat, with blonde hair swept back from a face so perfect it looked expensive to maintain. Her earrings were pearls, real ones, obviously. Even her sadness would probably come with a trust fund. The bakery seemed smaller around her. Phoebe hated that she noticed. Cassandra looked at the chalkboard menu, the mismatched tables, the line of day-old cookies wrapped for discount sale, and finally Phoebe. Her gaze moved slowly, from Phoebe's curls to her flour-dusted apron to her body, where it lingered just long enough to make the insult clear, without the effort of words. Then she smiled. You must be Phoebe. Phoebe wiped her hands on a towel. Depends who's asking. Cassandra Blake. Ah, the fiancé from the expensive side of the crime spreadsheet. Cassandra's smile tightened. Damien always did enjoy strays. Rosa, behind Phoebe, stopped moving. Phoebe felt the old heat rise in her face. Not shame exactly. Anger, trying to protect something bruised. She had been called worse. She had survived worse. Still, Cassandra's voice had a smooth little blade inside it, the kind designed to cut without leaving fingerprints. Phoebe leaned on the counter. And yet here you are, in my bakery. Careful. If you stay too long, you might develop flavor. Cassandra's eyes cooled. I came because this has gone far enough. Whatever game you and Damien are playing, it ends before people become confused. People? Your grandmother, for example. Phoebe's body went cold. Cassandra noticed. Of course she did. Women like Cassandra were trained to notice where the armor cracked. She seems fragile, Cassandra said softly. It would be unkind for her to learn from strangers that her granddaughter hired herself a pretend fiancé with blood on his hands. Rosa stepped forward. Get out. Cassandra did not look at her. Damien's world is not a place for women like you, Phoebe. It is not warm. It is not soft. It does not care how clever your little jokes are. Men may find novelty charming for a while, but eventually they remember where they belong. Phoebe's throat tightened. She hated that Cassandra had found the exact fear and dressed it in perfume. The front door opened again. Damien entered. The temperature in the bakery changed so quickly, even Cassandra turned. His eyes moved from Cassandra to Phoebe, then to Rosa's white-knuckled hands, then back to Cassandra. He did not ask what happened. He seemed to read the room like one of Phoebe's invoices. Every false number circled itself. Cassandra, he said. She smiled as if nothing were wrong. Damien, I came to speak with your new friend. She is not yours to approach." Phoebe's heart moved at the words. Then she scolded it. Quietly, firmly, Cassandra laughed once. "Is that what this is? Possession?" "No," Damien said. "Respect." That single word landed harder than anger would have. Cassandra's face changed. "You are making a mistake. I have made many. Do not humiliate my family because a baker made you feel human for a week." The bakery went still. Damien stepped closer, but his voice stayed calm. "Your family's name appears in laundering records tied to care homes Lorenzo has been using. If you came here to threaten Phoebe, choose your next words as if your future depends on them." Cassandra looked at Phoebe then. No smile now, no silk over the blade, just hatred, bright and clean. "You do not belong beside him," she said. Phoebe swallowed. Before she could answer, Damien did. "She does not need to belong beside me," he said. "I am the one asking for a place in her bakery." No one moved. Even Rosa looked stunned. Phoebe felt her heart break open in one silent, terrified place. Cassandra's face went pale with rage. "You will regret this." "Probably," Phoebe said, because if she did not speak she might cry, and she refused to give Cassandra the satisfaction. "But we sell regret in 6 flavors, so at least come hungry next time." Cassandra gave her one final look, then swept out of the bakery, with her coat floating behind her like an angry ghost. The bell rang. The room breathed again. Phoebe turned on Damien. "You cannot say things like that in public." "Which part?" "The bakery part, the place part, the whole emotionally reckless paragraph." It was one sentence. It had paragraph energy. Rosa muttered, "It did." Damien's gaze stayed on Phoebe. She threatened Evelyn. "I noticed. She will not get near her. You do not know that." "I do." Phoebe stepped closer. "No, you don't. You can put men on doors and cars on streets and fear in people's throats, but you cannot control every sharp thing in the world." His jaw tightened. There he was, the Mafia boss, the man who wanted danger, arranged neatly where he could see it. The man who had probably survived by never letting anyone else hold the map. Phoebe softened, but only a little. "Damien?" His eyes returned to hers. "I need you to hear me. Not as your problem, not as your fake fiancé, not as someone you failed before you even knew me. I need you to hear me as a person standing in front of you. If Cassandra goes after Evelyn, if Lorenzo comes after the bakery, if this gets worse, I will not be safer because you shove me behind a wall and call it love." Something in his face flinched at the last word, not visibly enough for anyone else, but Phoebe saw. "I did not call it love," he said quietly. "No," she said. "But you looked at it." Rosa suddenly found several urgent reasons to go into the kitchen. Nico, who had appeared near the door without Phoebe noticing, followed her after one sharp glance from Damien. The front of the bakery became quiet, except for the rain beginning again outside. Damien stepped closer, then stopped. That stop mattered more than the step. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Phoebe's answer should have been easy. "Nothing. Go away. Take your enemies and your beautiful almost fiancé and your terrifying life with you. Leave me with my bakery, my sister, my grandmother, and a world where dessert boxes only held dessert." But life had already moved. The lie had already changed shape, and some part of Phoebe, reckless and warm and tired of being treated like the soft parts of her made her weak, wanted to know what Damien DeMarco would do if asked to stand still instead of take over. "I want the truth," she said. "All of it. I want to know what is on that drive. I want to know why Cassandra's family is connected. I want to know whether Fairview Gardens is safe, and I want you to ask before you decide something about me." He nodded once. "Then come with me tonight." "Where?" "My club. The real one. Not the poker room. There are records there Lorenzo believes I do not have. If your reading of the invoices is right, we can connect his laundering route to Cassandra's family before they move the money." Phoebe stared at him. "You want me to go to your Mafia club and audit criminal catering receipts?" "Yes." She breathed out slowly. That is the most upsettingly specific date invitation I have ever received. It is not a date. Good. Unless you want it to be. Her mouth opened, closed. Damien looked almost satisfied. Phoebe pointed at him. No. No. No to that face. What face? The face of a man who knows he just made me forget English for half a second. His eyes warmed. There it was again. The dangerous thing. Not his power. Not his name. Not the men outside or the secrets on the drive. This was worse. The way he looked at her, like her sharp tongue, did not make her difficult. Like her body did not make her less. Like her fear did not make her weak. Like every part of her was arriving in the room exactly on time. That evening, Phoebe changed into a black wrap dress Rosa insisted was practical, and Phoebe insisted was too dramatic for receipt crime. Rosa adjusted the neckline, stepped back, and looked her over with worried affection. "You look beautiful," Rosa said. Phoebe rolled her eyes. "I look like I am about to seduce a tax document." "You look like Nana when she was young." That stopped her. Rosa smiled softly. "Loud eyes, trouble mouth." Phoebe blinked too fast. "Do not make me emotional before organized crime. Come back safe." "I will. Come back yourself." Phoebe looked at her sister then. That was the real fear, wasn't it? Not just danger. Change. Damien's world was large enough to swallow people and call it protection. Cassandra had said Phoebe did not belong there. Maybe she was right. But Phoebe knew something Cassandra did not. Belonging was not always about entering someone else's world. Sometimes it was about walking in with flour still on your shoes and refusing to shrink. Damien's car waited outside. When Phoebe stepped out, he turned from where he stood beside the back door. For a moment, he did not speak. His gaze moved over her, not greedily, not carelessly, but with such steady attention that her skin warmed under the night air. "What?" she said, because silence was dangerous, and she did not trust it. "You look like trouble," he said. Phoebe's lips curved despite herself. "Good. I would hate to be off-brand." He opened the car door for her. She looked at it, then at him. "No bodyguard routine," she said. I opened a door, with intense symbolism. "Get in the car, Phoebe." She did, but only because she wanted to. As the car pulled away from Sullivan Sisters, Phoebe looked back at the warm windows of the bakery, at Rosa standing behind the glass, at the little pink sign swinging in the rain. Then the city swallowed them into its dark streets, and Damien sat beside her in silence, close enough for her to feel the heat of him, careful enough not to touch. After several minutes his phone buzzed. He read the message. The calm left his face. Phoebe's stomach tightened. What happened? Damien looked at her, and for the first time that night, she saw fear in him. Not for himself. Never for himself. "For the past hour," he said, "Fairview Gardens has had no working security cameras." Phoebe felt the world go cold. Then her phone rang. Rosa's name lit the screen. Phoebe answered before the first ring ended. Her sister's voice came through thin and shaking. "Phoebes, Nana's nurse just called. Evelyn is missing." Phoebe heard the words, but for one terrible second, they did not become real. "Evelyn is missing." Her sister's voice shook through the phone, thin and frightened, and Phoebe sat in the back of Damien DeMarco's car, with the city sliding black and wet outside the windows, while her heart forgot how to beat properly. She looked at Damien. He was already moving before she spoke. One hand lifted toward the driver. His voice dropped, cold and sharp. "Fairview Gardens. Now." The car turned so fast, Phoebe grabbed the seat. Damien's other hand reached toward her, stopped halfway, then lowered, as if he had remembered her rule, before fear could make him break it. He did not touch her without asking. Even now, even with panic filling the car like smoke. "Rosa," Phoebe said into the phone, but her own voice sounded far away. "Tell me exactly what happened." "I don't know. The nurse said Nana was in her room after dinner. Then the cameras went out." When they came back, she was gone. Her cardigan is still there. Her slippers are still there. Phoebe's, she wouldn't leave without her slippers. She hates cold floors. Phoebe closed her eyes. That detail hurt more than anything. Evelyn could have been confused. She could have wondered. But not without her slippers. Not without complaining first. Not without making somebody hear about it. "Stay at the bakery," Phoebe said. "No, I'm coming." "Rosa." "No, do not use that voice. She is my grandmother too." Phoebe pressed her hand to her mouth. She wanted Rosa beside her. She wanted Rosa safe. She wanted too many impossible things at once. Damien watched her, expression still, eyes not. His phone was already at his ear. He was speaking to Nico in short, quiet orders, sending men to Fairview, to the bakery, to every exit between the nursing home and the river road. The old Phoebe, the one from yesterday morning, would have been terrified by how fast his world obeyed him. Tonight, she was terrified it would not be fast enough. "Rosa," Phoebe said, softer now, "bring the drive copy from the office computer." Rosa went silent. "What copy?" Phoebe swallowed. "The one I made while Nico was explaining why I shouldn't touch the laptop." Damien's head turned slowly. Even through terror, Phoebe almost laughed. "Do not look at me like that," she told him. "You copied the drive. I copied pieces of it. The invoice folders, the care home files. The things I understood. You told me you did not open files you did not understand. I didn't. I opened the ones I did understand. There is a difference, Mr. Funeral Suit." His eyes held hers for a second. Something like anger crossed his face, but under it was something worse. Fear, respect. A reluctant, furious admiration. Then he looked back to the road. "Bring it," he said into Phoebe's phone, loud enough for Rosa to hear. "Nico will meet you outside. You do not drive alone." Rosa snapped something in Spanish that Phoebe did not fully catch, but recognized as deeply insulting. Damien took it without blinking. "I deserve that. Bring the copy." The car tore through the rain. Phoebe stared at the glowing phone screen long after Rosa hung up. Her hand shook. Her whole body shook. She had spent years being loud because loud was easier than helpless. Loud filled rooms. Loud scared off pity. Loud made people think she was stronger than the soft places inside her. But in that car, with Evelyn missing and Damien beside her looking like a man trying not to become every terrible thing people already believed he was, Phoebe felt small in a way she hated, not because of her body. Her body had carried her through long shifts, heavy flour bags, grief, desire, loneliness, and every stupid comment thrown at her by strangers who thought softness meant permission. She felt small because the world had reached for the woman who raised her, and Phoebe had not been there to slap its hand away. Damien's voice cut through the dark. "Phoebe," she looked at him, "I am going to find her." The words were steady. Too steady. Phoebe could hear the promise inside them, and the violence waiting behind the promise. She leaned toward him, just enough for him to see her clearly in the passing streetlights. "You are going to help me find her." His jaw tightened once. She held his gaze. "Say it." A muscle moved in his cheek. He was not used to this. Not used to being stopped at the edge of command. Not used to having fear and obedience travel in different directions. But then he nodded. "I am going to help you find her." Phoebe breathed again. Fairview Gardens looked wrong when they arrived. Too bright. Too still. The front lobby was lit like nothing had happened, but 2 staff members were crying near the desk, and Mrs. Kaplan sat in her wheelchair by the window wearing a robe, pearls, and the expression of a woman ready to testify before Congress. Damien's men were already outside, dark shapes in the rain. The building director tried to stop Damien at the front doors. That went badly for him. Not violently. Damien only looked at him, and the man discovered a sudden love for cooperation. Phoebe walked straight to Mrs. Kaplan. The old woman grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "I told them she didn't wander." Phoebe crouched in front of her. What did you see? Mrs. Kaplan's eyes flicked to Damien, then back to Phoebe. That one yours? Temporarily under review. Good. He looks expensive and dangerous. We need both. She leaned closer. A woman came after dinner, blonde, pretty in that cold way, like a knife in a wedding dress. She brought flowers, said she was family. Phoebe's stomach turned. Cassandra. She was with a man from administration, not the director, the thin one with the nervous tie. Evelyn didn't like her. I could tell. Evelyn asked where you were. The blonde said something that made your grandmother stop smiling. Damien stood behind Phoebe. So still he seemed to have left his body and become attention itself. What did she say? Mrs. Kaplan looked at him. I'm old, not deaf. She said, it is time you knew what your granddaughter has been hiding. Then they took Evelyn toward the East Hall. Cameras went out after that. Everyone started fussing. Fools, all of them. I told that nurse Evelyn would never go east. She hates the East Hall. Says it smells like boiled socks and secrets. Phoebe took Mrs. Kaplan's hand and kissed it. You are my favorite spy. I know. Bring me a cannoli when this is over. 2. Make it 3. I am emotionally involved. Phoebe stood and turned to Damien. His face had gone deadly quiet. Cassandra took her. Cassandra was here, he said. That may not mean she still has her. No, but it means she touched my family after you warned her not to. The words came out hard. Damien heard the blame inside them. Phoebe heard it too, and regretted it, but not enough to take it back. Damien did not defend himself. That, somehow, made her angrier and sadder at the same time. They searched Evelyn's room. Her lavender cardigan lay folded over the chair. Her slippers waited beside the bed. Her red lipstick sat uncapped on the dresser. A bright little wound against the white surface. Phoebe picked it up and nearly broke. Evelyn never left lipstick uncapped. She was interrupted, she whispered. Damien looked around the room. What is missing? Phoebe blinked through the pressure in her eyes. What? What would she take if she knew she might not come back here right away? Phoebe looked at the dresser. The framed photograph of her and Rosa was still there. The half-finished crossword was still there. The tiny radio. The jar of lemon candies. The old pink comb. Then her eyes moved to the bedside shelf. The peony music box was gone. Phoebe crossed the room too quickly. Her music box. Damien came beside her. Important? Her favorite. My grandfather gave it to her before he died. She keeps little things inside. Buttons. Notes. Old receipts. Once, an emergency $20 bill she forgot about for 12 years. Damien's eyes sharpened. Would she take it herself? Phoebe thought of Evelyn in the lobby, sharp under sickness. Evelyn, who cheated at bingo and noticed everything. Evelyn, who had looked at Damien and known trouble when she saw it. Phoebe's breath caught. Maybe. Nico appeared at the door with Rosa behind him. Rosa pushed past everyone and grabbed Phoebe so hard the air left both of them. For 1 second, they just held each other. 2 grown women in a nursing home room wrapped around the same fear. Rosa pulled back first. I brought the copy. Damien turned to Nico. Administration officers. Now. The thin man with the nervous tie did not last long under Damien's attention, but it was Phoebe who broke him. Damien asked where Cassandra had taken Evelyn. The man lied. Damien asked again. The man sweated. Then Phoebe stepped close, placed both hands on his desk, and spoke softly. My grandmother is sick. She is scared. And you helped someone move her in the middle of the night. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to tell me where she went, or I am going to have my sister call every resident's family by sunrise and explain exactly how easy it was for a stranger to walk out with their mother, father, aunt, or husband while you were in charge. Then I will send them your name, correct spelling. I am very good with names. The man looked at Damien, then at Rosa, then at Phoebe. Blake Care has a private suite downtown, he whispered, for donors. They said Mrs. Sullivan was being moved for safety. Miss Blake had paperwork. Forged? Damien asked. The man swallowed. Signed by the director. The director, apparently, had taken a sudden trip out of town that afternoon. That answered enough. Damien's men found Evelyn less than 40 minutes later in a private care suite above one of Cassandra's family clinics. She was frightened and exhausted, but unharmed. When Phoebe reached her, Evelyn was sitting upright in a bed under a pale blue blanket, wearing someone else's slippers, and the angriest expression a sick woman could manage. "Those slippers are ugly," Evelyn said the moment Phoebe entered. Phoebe burst into tears. "Oh, don't start," Evelyn muttered, but her own voice shook. "You'll make me start." Phoebe crossed the room and wrapped her arms around her grandmother carefully, terrified of squeezing too hard, terrified of letting go. Rosa climbed onto the other side of the bed and held Evelyn's hand. For a few minutes, there were no mafia bosses, no ledgers, no rich women with threats hidden behind flowers. There was only the three of them, and the old woman who had built their family out of stubbornness and soup. Damien waited outside the room. Phoebe noticed that. He did not enter like he had a right. He did not turn Evelyn's rescue into his moment. He stood in the hallway, with his back to the door, and let them have the first breath of relief for themselves. That was when Evelyn saw him through the glass. "Well," she said, wiping her eyes with the edge of the blanket, "let the undertaker in." Phoebe laughed through tears. "Nana, I was kidnapped by a blonde skeleton in pearls. I deserve entertainment." Damien entered only after Phoebe nodded. He stepped to the foot of the bed. "Mrs. Sullivan." Evelyn studied him. "You look guilty." "I am." "Good. Means you have a conscience." Annoying things, but useful. Her gaze moved to Phoebe. "And you, sit down before your face collapses." Phoebe sat. Evelyn patted the blanket. "Cassandra told me you lied." The room went silent. Phoebe felt Rosa's hand tighten around hers. She said Damien was not your fiancé. "Said you invented a man because you thought I was too weak to survive the truth." Evelyn's face softened. She said it cruelly, of course. Rich cruel, smells better, cuts the same. Phoebe's eyes burned again. "Nana, I am so sorry. I know. No, I need to say it. I lied because I was scared. You were scared for me, and I didn't know how to fix it. So I made someone up. Then the lie got bigger, and every time you smiled, I let it grow, because I wanted you to have one less thing hurting you." Her voice broke. "But you deserved the truth." Evelyn looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, "I knew." Phoebe stared. "What?" "Oh, honey. Please." The first version of him was a marine biologist who hated seafood. The next version owned a bookstore but never had a last name. Then suddenly he was tall, successful, private, and away on business every time I asked to meet him. "I may be ill, but I am not decorative." Rosa covered her mouth. Phoebe was horrified. "You knew the whole time." "Almost. I was waiting to see how long you could juggle before dropping the circus." Evelyn glanced at Damien. Then he showed up, and I knew he was not the original lie. Damien's brows lifted slightly. "How? You didn't know Phoebe's favorite dessert. A fiancé would know she pretends it's lemon cake because it sounds bright and cheerful, but it's actually warm bread pudding with too much cinnamon because she is emotionally 87. Evelyn turned to Phoebe. "Also, you looked at him like a tiger had wandered into the lobby wearing a wedding ring." Phoebe pressed both hands to her face. "I hate this family." "No, you don't." Evelyn's voice softened. "But I also saw the way he looked at you." Phoebe lowered her hands slowly. Damien did not move. Evelyn's eyes, tired but clear, stayed on her granddaughter. That part was not fake. The room changed around those words. Phoebe felt Damien's attention from across the bed. She did not look at him. If she looked at him, something inside her might step forward before she was ready. Evelyn reached for the peony music box on the bedside table. Phoebe had not noticed it there. Her grandmother's fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was not just old buttons and folded scraps of paper. There was a tiny drive, a second one, pink, ridiculous, covered with a faded sticker of a cupcake. Phoebe stared. "Nana." Evelyn smiled with great satisfaction. "I knew Miss Pearl Skeleton wanted something, and when an old woman is taken from her room, she takes the thing nobody expects to matter." Damien stepped closer, eyes fixed on the drive. "Where did you get that?" "From Phoebe's purse when she was crying into my birthday cake napkin." Phoebe gasped. "You stole from me." "I borrowed from a thief of truth. I cannot believe you. I raised you. Believe bigger." Damien looked at Phoebe. She looked at him. Then, for the first time since the phone call, they both laughed. Not much. Not enough to remove the fear, but enough to let air back into the room. The plan came together before dawn, not because Damien ordered it, but because Phoebe refused to let it form without her. Evelyn was moved to a secure hospital suite under a name Rosa chose from one of their old bakery supply accounts. Mrs. Kaplan was told just enough to spread the wrong gossip with confidence, a role she accepted with deep artistic pride. Cassandra believed Evelyn had been shaken into silence. Lorenzo believed Damien was scrambling. Both of them believed Phoebe still had the only usable copy of the drive. They were wrong. Phoebe spent the next day in Damien's club, which was nothing like the private poker room where this had started. This place was older, darker, and strangely beautiful, hidden behind a restaurant with red leather booths and waiters who had the quiet eyes of men who noticed exits. The club itself had a ballroom upstairs used for charity events, political dinners, and the kind of fundraisers where people pretended money was clean because violins played nearby. A gala was already scheduled there that night for a children's medical foundation. Cassandra was expected. Lorenzo was expected. Half the city's powerful hypocrites were expected. Phoebe stood in the empty ballroom that afternoon, looking up at crystal chandeliers and white flowers arranged in tall glass vases. "Your club is very subtle," she said. Damien stood beside her. "I do not decorate. I can tell." "This room says a vampire married a bank." Nico, passing behind them with a tablet, made the cough laugh again. Damien ignored him. "You do not have to be bait." Phoebe turned to him. "We discussed this." "No, you explained it. I disliked it. That is the same as discussion in your world, probably." His face was serious. "Lorenzo will come for you if he thinks you still have the real drive. That is why I will be surrounded by your men. Men can fail. So can plans. So can locks. So can pretending I am safe if I hide. Damien, Cassandra went after my grandmother because she thought I was the weak part of your life. Lorenzo thinks the same. I am tired of people looking at me and seeing leverage." His voice lowered. "You are not leverage. I know." Phoebe stepped closer. "That is why I need them to learn it." The words sat between them. Damien looked at her with that terrible, steady care she had begun to feel, even when he was across the room. Then he nodded once, not because he liked it, because she had chosen, and he was learning not to turn love into a locked door. That night, Phoebe wore the green dress again, not because it was fancy enough. It was not. Cassandra would probably wear silk spun by obedient angels. Phoebe wore the dress because Evelyn liked it, because Rosa said it made her look alive, and because Phoebe refused to enter that ballroom dressed like an apology. Rosa pinned a tiny microphone beneath the flowered neckline and whispered, "If you die, I will haunt you." Phoebe hugged her. "If I die, I expect snacks at the haunting. I am serious, I know." Phoebe pulled back. "I'll come back." Rosa's eyes filled. "Yourself?" Phoebe smiled softly. Louder. The gala began with champagne, cameras, and rich people pretending not to stare at the baker on Damien DeMarco's arm. Phoebe felt every glance. Some curious, some cruel, some confused. She kept her chin high anyway. Damien did not hold her like a prize. He did not steer her by the waist or pull her through the room like proof of rebellion. He offered his arm, and she took it because she wanted to. When she stopped, he stopped. When she spoke, he listened. That frightened her more than any guard in the room. Cassandra arrived in silver. She looked perfect. Of course she did. Perfect was her weapon. Her hair shone. Her diamonds glittered. Her smile was calm enough to pass for innocence at a distance. Lorenzo Virelli stood near her, handsome in a sharp, empty way, with eyes that never stayed still. Phoebe recognized him immediately as the kind of man who laughed only when someone else was uncomfortable. Cassandra saw Phoebe and came straight toward her. "How brave," Cassandra said, "or how desperate." Phoebe smiled. "I get those confused when I'm underdressed." Cassandra's gaze dropped over her body again. "You do understand he cannot keep playing house in your bakery forever." Before Damien could speak, Phoebe touched his arm. A small signal. "Let me." Phoebe stepped closer to Cassandra. "You know what's funny? You keep saying I don't belong here like I didn't notice. Of course I don't belong here. This room has 4 kinds of forks and no decent coffee. But you made a mistake." Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "You thought not belonging would make me ashamed." Phoebe's smile faded. "It made me pay attention." The first half of the trap was simple. Phoebe let Cassandra see the fake drive in her clutch. She let herself look nervous. She let Lorenzo's man brush too close near the auction table and switch the clutch for a matching one. She let him walk away. Damien watched from across the room, every line of his body screaming restraint. Phoebe knew what it cost him to wait. She loved him a little for waiting anyway. Maybe more than a little. Maybe enough to scare her. The second half was less simple. The fake drive contained a tracking file, partial records, and just enough bait to make Lorenzo believe Damien's organization had internal leaks. Nico opened a false communication channel. Marco let one of Lorenzo's men overhear a staged argument near the kitchen. Rosa, who had insisted on coming as part of the catering staff, moved through the ballroom with trays of lemon cakes and a smile sharp enough to cut ribbon. Within an hour, Lorenzo believed Damien's men were divided. Cassandra believed Phoebe had panicked, and half the dirty money route had exposed itself through frantic calls Damien's team quietly captured. But the real twist belonged to Phoebe, because while everyone watched the fake drive, the real evidence had already left the building. Evelyn's peony music box, carried out that afternoon inside a delivery crate marked wedding samples, had gone to 3 places at once. One copy went to a federal investigator Damien did not own. One went to rival families who had been unknowingly cheated by Lorenzo. One went to a journalist Evelyn had once fed cookies to during a nursing home inspection story, 15 years earlier. Evelyn had insisted on that last one. She said never trust justice with only one address. Lorenzo discovered the truth too late. The ballroom screens flickered during the charity auction. At first, people thought it was a technical error. Then the foundation logo vanished. In its place came invoices, transfers, holding companies, care home contracts, video from Fairview Gardens showing Cassandra entering Evelyn's room, audio of Lorenzo ordering a man to recover the drive before the baker makes herself useful. Gasps moved through the room like wind over water. Cassandra went white. Lorenzo looked at Damien, then at Phoebe, and for the first time all night, he seemed to understand that the soft woman in the green dress was not a decoration in someone else's war. She was the reason the doors had closed. Police entered from the main entrance, so did men from rival families, not armed openly, not speaking loudly, but present enough to make running an unattractive idea. Lorenzo reached for Cassandra's arm. Cassandra pulled away. Loyalty, Phoebe saw, had a short shelf life when prison entered the room. Lorenzo tried to smile. This is theater. Phoebe lifted her champagne glass. Good. I was worried the pacing dragged. He turned his eyes on her. They were ugly now. No charm left. You stupid little baker. Damien moved. Phoebe touched his wrist. He stopped. That silence was thunder. Phoebe looked at Lorenzo herself. Her voice did not shake. You used old people as hiding places for dirty money. You threatened my family. You mistook flour on my shoes for weakness. That was your first mistake." Lorenzo's face twisted. "And the second?" Phoebe smiled. "You stole from men who are much less forgiving than I am." Behind him, two of those men stepped forward. Damien's people did not need to touch Lorenzo. The police reached him first. Cassandra tried to walk out with her head high, but Nico was already at the door with 2 officers and a folder full of Blake's signatures. Her composure cracked only once, when she looked back and saw Damien standing beside Phoebe, not in front of her, beside her, as if the whole room could learn the shape of his choice. "You are throwing away alliances for her," Cassandra said. Damien's voice carried, quiet but clear. "No, I am ending the habit of confusing alliances with chains." Cassandra's eyes burned. "She will never belong in your world." Damien looked at Phoebe then. Something soft moved through the danger in his face. "Then I will be lucky if she lets me visit hers." Phoebe's breath caught. The room heard it. Rosa heard it. Nico definitely heard it and looked suddenly very interested in a floral centerpiece. Cassandra was led away. Lorenzo followed, no longer smiling. The ballroom erupted into whispers, phone calls, denials, and rich people discovering urgent reasons to stand near innocent-looking exits. Phoebe stood very still in the middle of it all, her hand still near Damien's wrist. It was over, not cleanly. Nothing like this ended cleanly. There would be lawyers, investigations, hearings, articles, new threats, old debts, families rearranging power while pretending honor had anything to do with it. But Evelyn was safe. Rosa was safe. Fairview Gardens would be ripped open and watched by people who could not be bought as easily. Cassandra's family had lost its polished mask. Lorenzo had learned, far too late, that Phoebe Sullivan knew the difference between cake decoration and structural support. Her knees suddenly felt weak. Damien saw it. "Phoebe, I'm fine. You are pale. I just helped collapse a money laundering system in formal wear. Give me a second." His hand lifted. "May I?" Such a small question, such a huge one. Phoebe nodded. He touched her elbow gently and guided her toward a side balcony away from the crowd. The night air was cool and damp. Far below, the city shone with 1,000 windows, each one holding lives that knew nothing about flash drives, fake engagements, or grandmothers who weaponized music boxes. Phoebe leaned against the stone railing and breathed. Damien stood beside her, not too close. For a while neither spoke. Then Phoebe said, "We don't have to pretend anymore." Damien's face remained turned toward the city. "No, the fake engagement can be over." "Yes." She waited. He looked at her then. "I stopped pretending a while ago." Phoebe's heart did the foolish thing again, the hopeful thing, the dangerous thing. "Damien, I know." His voice was low. "I know what I am. I know what my world is. I know you did not ask for any of it. I know I frighten people you love. I know I have power, and I know power can rot kindness if a man mistakes control for care." Phoebe swallowed. He turned fully toward her. "So I will not ask you to enter my world as decoration. I will not ask you to become quieter, smaller, easier, or polished enough for rooms like that one. I will not buy your life and call it protection. I will not decide your future and call it love." Her eyes burned. "What are you asking?" she whispered. Damien looked almost nervous. It was so strange on him that Phoebe nearly smiled through the ache in her chest. "I am asking if I can earn a place in yours." The city seemed to hold its breath. Phoebe thought about the private club hallway, the wrong dessert box, Evelyn's birthday cake, Cassandra's cold smile, Damien eating peach cake from a paper plate, Damien stopping his hand in the car, Damien waiting outside Evelyn's hospital room, Damien standing beside her in the ballroom, not in front of her. She stepped closer. "One real date," she said. "My terms." His eyes softened. "Name them." "Cheap coffee shop. No bodyguards at the table. No black car parked dramatically outside the window. No calling me sweetheart unless you mean it. No pretending you like my jokes if you don't. I do like your jokes. That is concerning for both of us. His mouth curved, a real smile this time, small but alive. And, Phoebe added, her voice softer, if I say no to something, it means no, even if you are scared, even if you think you know better. Damien nodded. Yes. And if you mess up, I will tell you. I assumed. And if I get scared, I may make fun of your clothes. I also assumed. Phoebe looked at him for a long second. Then she reached for his hand. Not because Evelyn was watching. Not because a lie needed feeding. Not because danger required performance. Because she wanted to know how his fingers felt when there was no audience and no emergency between them. His hand closed around hers carefully. Okay, she said. Damien looked down at their joined hands. Okay, one date. His thumb moved once over her knuckles. This time, it was not a warning. It was wonder. The cheap coffee shop was terrible. Phoebe chose it on purpose. The coffee tasted burned, the tables wobbled, and the man behind the counter called Damien Buddy, which nearly made Phoebe choke on her muffin. Damien wore navy instead of black. Phoebe accused him of emotional growth again. He ordered coffee without complaint, listened while she described the politics of bakery yeast, and did not once look at the door until a man dropped a tray and everyone looked at the door. Phoebe noticed. Damien noticed her noticing. He looked back at her and stayed. That was how it began for real. Not with a grand confession. Not with a ring. Not with a kiss under chandeliers while criminals were arrested behind them. It began with bad coffee, one blueberry muffin split in half, and Damien DeMarco asking Phoebe what she wanted her bakery to become in 5 years. No one had asked her that in a long time. People asked if she was dating, if she was tired, if business was good, if Evelyn was worse. They did not ask about dreams, as if dreams were practical things that deserved table space. Phoebe told him she wanted a bigger kitchen, a second oven, a delivery van that did not require threats, a late-night window where nurses, cab drivers, students, and lonely people could buy warm bread after midnight. Damien listened like she was describing a kingdom. Months passed. The city did what cities always do. It swallowed scandal, digested it, and asked for more. Lorenzo's name became a headline. Cassandra's became a warning, whispered in rooms where women like her used to rule. Fairview Gardens changed directors, then ownership, then staff. Mrs. Kaplan got her cannoli and immediately demanded a loyalty discount. Rosa promoted Marco to official backdoor repairman and unofficial cinnamon roll tester. Nico learned that Phoebe's coffee was stronger than loyalty and twice as dangerous. Sal still could not pipe whipped cream, but he tried every Thursday. Evelyn had good days and bad days. Phoebe learned not to count them like coins. She learned to live inside the good ones while they lasted. Damien visited her every Sunday. He never missed. Sometimes he brought flowers, not roses, peonies. Sometimes Evelyn made him play cards and accused him of cheating when he won and of insulting her intelligence when he lost. Sometimes she fell asleep while he sat beside her, and he stayed anyway, quiet in the chair near the window, a man keeping an old promise to someone who was not his grandmother, but had somehow forgiven him for missing another one. Phoebe loved him slowly, then all at once, then slowly again. That was the surprising part. Love did not make her smaller. It did not soften her edges into something easier to hold. If anything, she became louder. Safer things often grow louder. Plants near windows, kids in warm kitchens, women who finally believe they are not asking too much by wanting room. Damien changed too, but not into someone else. Phoebe would have hated that. He was still dangerous, still quiet, still a man who made other men reconsider their sentences, but he asked more questions. He waited for answers. He learned the difference between stepping in and standing near. He learned that protection could look like a locked door, but love usually looked like an open one, and someone trusted to walk through it. Nearly 7 months after the birthday that started everything, Evelyn insisted on attending what she called the correction ceremony. Phoebe told her normal people called it an engagement party. Evelyn said normal people were not in charge. The bakery closed early that day. Rosa cried while pretending she had powdered sugar in both eyes. Mrs. Kaplan came in a purple hat and demanded the best seat. Damien's men filled the back wall, trying and failing to look less emotional than a row of armed uncles. There was no ballroom, no chandeliers, no violin music played by people who looked bored. Phoebe wanted the bakery, warm lights, pink walls, Bernadette the sourdough starter bubbling by the window, cinnamon in the air. Evelyn in her wheelchair near the front counter with lipstick bright as ever and a blanket over her knees. Damien stood beside Phoebe in a dark blue suit because she had banned funeral black for romantic milestones. His hand was steady when he took hers, but she knew him well enough now to feel the nerves under his skin. He did not make a speech about owning the city. He did not promise her diamonds, houses, or safety he could not fully guarantee. He said, "You made room for me." Phoebe's throat tightened. "And I will spend my life making sure you never have to make yourself smaller to keep me there." That was when Rosa actually cried. Loudly, Marco handed her a napkin. She told him to mind his business and took it. Phoebe slid the ring onto Damien's finger first. It was simple, dark metal, chosen because he said gold felt too loud, and Phoebe said that was rich, coming from a man whose car looked like a threat. He slid her ring on next. It was not delicate. She had told him delicate rings looked nervous on her hand. This one had a warm center stone and tiny engraved peonies on the band for Evelyn. Phoebe stared at it, then at him, and for once she had no joke ready. Evelyn rolled closer and lifted her trembling hand. Damien bent at once. She touched his cheek. "You are still trouble." "Yes, ma'am, but you are teachable." Phoebe laughed. "Barely." Evelyn looked at Phoebe then, and the room seemed to soften around her. "Remember this, baby. Being loved should never ask you to become smaller. Not your body, not your voice, not your dreams, not your dignity." Phoebe knelt in front of her grandmother and held her hands. "I remember." "Good." Evelyn smiled. "Now kiss him before I need a nap." So Phoebe stood. Damien looked at her, waiting, always waiting now. Not because he was unsure, but because choice had become part of the way he loved her. Phoebe stepped into him and kissed him in the middle of the bakery, surrounded by sugar, family, criminals, gossip, and every strange road that had led them there. Everyone cheered. Mrs. Kaplan shouted something inappropriate. Nico pretended to inspect the ceiling. Rosa sobbed into a dish towel. Evelyn smiled like a woman who had known the ending before anyone else found the courage to read it. Later, when the bakery had quieted, and the last plates of cake were almost gone, Damien stood behind Phoebe near the front window. The street outside was dark and wet, just like the night they met, but the bakery was warm. Rosa was laughing in the kitchen. Evelyn was asleep by the counter with the peony music box in her lap. The little bell above the door rested still. Damien kissed Phoebe's forehead. "You no longer need a boyfriend for tomorrow." Phoebe looked up at him. No. His arms stayed loose around her. Never a cage. She smiled. "I don't need one for tomorrow." Damien's eyes softened. Phoebe touched his face, flour still dusting her fingers, her ring warm on her hand, her voice steady and full of everything she had once been afraid to want. "I found the one brave enough to choose me forever."